Cautiously optimistic. That is the phrase that summarizes what I have to say about the OPPO Find N3, which is also known as the OnePlus Open. Both of them are the same device, it's just different names. As a foldable user, the OPPO Find N3 is stepping forward in a good direction and is actually better in a few different aspects, but it doesn't have some of the essential features that its competitors have. We'll leave all of the comparisons between the OPPO Find N3 Fold and also the Galaxy Z Fold 5 in another video, so do subscribe so you don't miss out that video when it comes out. In this video, we will only talk about the OPPO Find N3 alone. We'll go through our usual 8 points in this video, so let's get started with the cover display. If you saw our review of the OPPO Find N2 from about like 10 months ago, you will realize that OPPO ditched the short and wide form factor in favor of a more traditional slab phone size. It's using a 120Hz 6.31-inch OLED screen that is a lot bigger than before, and it has an aspect ratio of about 20:9 and a resolution of 2484 by 1116 pixels. I mean, this phone is definitely wide. Reaching to the other end of the screen while using the cover display with just one hand is rather difficult even for someone with large hands like mine. While its aspect ratio is better than the OPPO Find N2, I'm not sure if it's the quote-unquote best aspect ratio. We'll talk about this in our comparison with the Galaxy Z Fold 5 because I'm very excited about that video. Anyway, our colorimeter reports that this display can go up to around 950 nits brightness and 96.48% of sRGB color gamut coverage. Rather low, and the DCI-P3 is also at a rather low percentage of coverage as well. At least the delta E numbers are low as well, which is a good thing in that sense. How about the unfolded bigger inner display then? It's a 120Hz 7.82-inch OLED screen with a resolution of 2440 by 2268 pixels, and some might already realize that this is a rather squarish aspect ratio. I'm not sure how to feel about this honestly, since the width of the cover display is already so wide. The inner display will have to double that width and plus a little bit more because of that hinge area when it is unfolded. That makes holding this device with just one hand is gonna be pretty much impractical. It's not impossible if you have big hands like mine, it's just not comfortable. The phone practically needs to be used with two hands at all times, and personally, I'm not a fan of that. Anyway, the inner display can go up to around 1000 nits, and for the color test, we did it twice, once for the left half and the other for the right half. Both sides are very consistent in terms of its color accuracy, but it only covers around 97% of sRGB and less than 72% of DCI-P3 color gamuts. That's not very good. What's good though is the hinge. OPPO upgraded the foldable devices for this generation to use the Flexion Hinge 3rd Gen. I think that's what it's called. And it feels really snappy on this phone. OPPO managed to make the crease feel as flat as possible, and so far it still looks and feels good. I say so far because I don't know what's the long-term implications, as the crease depth will change over time. Like the Galaxy Z Fold 5, when I first reviewed this phone when I got it, the crease was really shallow, but as time goes by, you can see now the crease got a little bit deeper than before. However, there are a few sketchy things as well that I need to point out. First, OPPO's official video for this phone shows that it got sprayed with water and whatnot, but there is no official IP rating listed on their website at all. Secondly, thanks to some other media from some other country, I apologize for not remembering your name or where you're from. That guy highlighted that the OPPO Find N3 cannot be opened 100% flat. If I place this phone on a flat surface, you can see that rocking motion. Now, is this a big deal? Well, honestly, no. I didn't even realize this until that guy pointed it out. And yes, I did look at a few different units of the OPPO Find N3 Fold, and all of them have this same quote-unquote issue. Now, how about the performance? This phone is powered by the Snapdragon 8 Gen 2 chipset, and it is indeed a very powerful chipset. However, as shown in our gaming test video that you can watch at the top right corner there if you want to, the performance isn't really up to my expectations, especially when it starts to thermal throttle. To give you a little bit of context, we are playing Genshin Impact at the highest graphical settings at around 40-ish average FPS, which is not that high, I would say. I also redid the same gaming test on the Galaxy Z Fold 5 using the same version of the game, and I got a higher average frame rate on this phone with the exact same graphical settings. There are two possible explanations for this discrepancy. First one being difference in render resolution. The OPPO Find N3 might be running the game at a higher render resolution, but I can't confirm it since we cannot see the render resolution on OPPO phones. Second possible explanation is the cooling solution on the OPPO Find N3. Because it is so thin, there's really not much space to fit in a proper vapor chamber or anything similar. OPPO says that this phone does have something called dual true hinge graphite with some vague description of what it actually does. But ultimately, I don't think it helps because as shown in our gaming test video, it thermal throttles. And this big camera bump here isn't gonna help either because it is a very big heat insulator there, trapping heat inside the phone. This could be a bigger problem since the chipset is located somewhere near the camera bump, hence the phone chipset doesn't have that much space to dissipate heat out. And here we have to talk about the software. This is where I am most cautiously optimistic about OPPO's foldable device. OPPO introduced a new branch of ColorOS 13.2 with some special features made specifically for foldable devices. I'm not sure what to feel about this honestly, so let's talk about the positives first. They are giving us a total of 4 generations of Android OS upgrades with 5 years of security patches, matching Samsung's software update policy, which is a real good thing to have. OPPO also made a big deal out of their new Boundless View feature, which can be activated by placing apps side by side and can be swapped into view quickly. Or you can view all of the 3 apps at once, and currently this is the best take on multitasking on a foldable device that I've seen so far. App continuity between the inner display and the cover display is also really well done on OPPO's side. Every time I'm using an app on the big display and I decide to just close the phone, it will ask me to swipe up to continue using. If I don't want to swipe up to continue, then I can just leave it for a second and then it will lock the screen automatically. This gives us the flexibility to choose in a case-by-case basis rather than Samsung's very rigid options. Again, we'll talk more about this in our comparison video coming later. The addition of an alert slider on a phone is also a big plus. I just think that all phones should have something like an alert slider because it's just a very convenient feature to have. While OPPO is making strides in these 3 aspects, I really do wish that they'll improve in a total of 3 more different aspects. Firstly, the taskbar. I don't know why, but OPPO's implementation of the taskbar is rather limited. We can only put a total of 4 apps in the taskbar, apps and folders included, and then a total of 3 recently opened apps at the right side of the taskbar. Come on now, I think that we can put more apps in the taskbar, right? There's a lot of wasted space right now that we can further utilize it and also improve the user experience. So just let us put more apps there. Secondly, I think it's called the Smart Sidebar. It's a mix of shortcuts that, take a screenshot, start screen recording, but other than that, it's practically just a different taskbar. I'm not sure why they decide to do that. It could have been so much better if OPPO just allowed us to, put in utilities, for example, a clipboard into that side bar. And thirdly, the power button. Someone in our comment section also shared their frustration with us about this exact same problem. You see, when we double tap the power button, it will launch something called Find Easy. A quick Google search leads us to the Find Easy website, and while there's not an explicit description of what it actually does, it does seem like this is some sort of voucher hunter or deal hunter app. Now, since I don't use this Find Easy app, can I disable this shortcut? Nope. Can I customize the double tap power button gesture to, let's just say, launch Google Pay, for example? Also no. How about double tapping the power button to launch the camera app? No. Everything is locked, and seriously, I just want a faster way to open the camera app. I'm not even asking that much, right? Because you got such nice cameras that you keep talking about it. Let us open the camera app easier and faster. And speaking of the cameras, the OPPO Find N3 has a total of 3 cameras, one of them being a periscope camera with 3 times optical zoom, 70mm of focal length to be exact. And I'm not sure why OPPO opted in for a periscope lens for 70mm of focal length, since it is going to impact the aperture size by a little bit. There are also other phones that are using pancake lenses with 70mm of focal length as well. But anyway, all of the 3 cameras on this phone is packed with Hasselblad's color science, and honestly speaking, I really like it. The pictures coming out of all the 3 cameras are amazing. I took a lot of pictures during the day, indoors, and even during the night, and I realized the shutter speed is also very fast. One thing I have to point it out right now is that when I transfer all of these pictures into my computer, then put it in a video for you guys to see, it will look very different compared to viewing it directly on the phone itself. There's something called OPPO's Pro XDR, which is something like OPPO's own version of HDR. The pictures will look completely different with this feature. And when the night came, I went out and took a lot more shots, and from what I can see here, the picture quality is also very good. I took this shot in complete darkness using night mode and it looks good. Even the telephoto camera managed to capture this shot with great clarity, and I'm just amazed overall. And for videography, this phone can capture up to 4K 60fps videos, and from what I can see here, the stabilization is okay, even for night videos. Once again, I have to announce that we are going to return to this topic in our comparison with the Galaxy Z Fold 5. It actually goes deeper than just all of these image quality and whatnot. Now, how's the battery life of this OPPO Find N3 then? It comes with a combined battery capacity of 4805 mAh, and we did a total of 2 tests. One for the cover display only, and then another one for the inner display. So for the cover display, we can get about 14.5 hours, which is really good. But the inner display only lasts for about 11 hours. So if you want to mix and match to use between the 2 screens, then it might be able to last you throughout 1 full day of usage. As for the charging speed, we have a 67-watt Super VOOC charger inside the box, and we can charge to 100% in slightly less than 40 minutes. That's great, but what's not so great is the lack of USB PD charging standard support. Now, when I redid the charging test using our Ugreen 140 watts GAN charger, this phone can only take up to 18 watts and it takes about 80 minutes to charge completely. It's not the slowest in terms of charging speed, but I really do want brands to ditch their own proprietary charging standard in favor of something more open and more cross-compatible with other brands like USB PD. Yeah, all of the things that we talked earlier are packed within this phone design. It's very thin but wide, and it also comes in a total of 2 colors, black in PU leather or gold with a matte finish. I'm rather impartial towards the colors, but I do want to ask, why this camera design? Why does OPPO like to cosplay a washing machine so much? This camera bump is not only thick, but also humongous and wastes a lot of space. If we just take the camera bump into account for its thickness, then the OPPO Find N3 is actually much more thicker than the Galaxy Z Fold 5. That's surprising, right? And if you haven't already realized, because of how humongous this camera bump is, the OPPO Find N3 does not have wireless charging. But it still has NFC, it's just that the NFC is located somewhere around the top of the phone. And this phone is also using a USB 3 port at the bottom, so transferring files back and forth the device is really fast. And while it does have DisplayPort out mode over USB-C, it does not have a desktop mode, so it will just mirror the inner display, so yeah, that's it. The OPPO Find N3 also has an IR blaster at the top, which is an amazing feature to have for those who actually use it. And as usual, this phone does not have a microSD card slot, but it does have double SIM card slots alongside eSIM support. So should you buy the OPPO Find N3? Well, for the price of 7,999 ringgit, I would say yes and no. It kind of depends on what you want actually. I do think that the cameras on the OPPO Find N3 is definitely fantastic alongside the alert slider and some of the software features. I am optimistic about all of these aspects, but I am very cautious about some other aspects like IP rating, taskbar that's oddly limiting for no reason, and also that Find Easy app. That needs to change. I just think that for the price of 7,999 ringgit, it's definitely on the very high side, and it will be interesting when we put things into perspective when we compare with the Galaxy Z Fold 5, yay! Because for the same RAM and storage configuration, this phone is 700 ringgit cheaper than the OPPO Find N3. Again, that comparison will come soon. I hope I can get it out faster, but our schedule is kind of packed. So that's all we have to share with you in this video regarding the OPPO Find N3. Is this the perfect foldable device? No, definitely not. There's no perfect foldable device right now. So yeah, we'll see you guys in the next video.